Hello and welcome to another history video. I have acquired a new duck recently, so it's clearly new video time. This is Chuck, newly crowned King of the Ducks, otherwise known as Chuck the Duck. And he's going to help me do a quick run through of mishaps at royal coronations through time. So if we start at the beginning with William the Conqueror. William was crowned in Westminster Abbey on Christmas Day in 1066, which was nice timing for everyone, good bit of a party, but also happened just a month after his rival Harold Godwinson had proclaimed himself king there and also been crowned. So, bit expensive, bit controversial. William went ahead with it anyway. Ceremony generally went well till the moment where he was finally proclaimed king, and all his knights inside the abbey cheered so very loudly that his French knights outside thought he was being murdered and rushed in there to stop it, setting fire to sort of half the houses around and part of the abbey at the same time. It's said to be the only time people ever saw William the Conqueror look frightened, so it must have been a bit of a mess. Moving on further down the line, in 1216 there wasn't a crown available for the coronation of Henry III. His father, King John, had managed to lose all the crown jewels in the wash, which will never not be funny, quite frankly. How do you lose crown jewels in the wash? Well, it was a strip of land he tried crossing at the wrong moment. Everything got washed away in his baggage train. So 9-year-old Henry III was crowned with one of his mother's bracelets. He had a second coronation later on when a new crown was made, but the one with the bracelet was the official one. Further down the line again, Edward II left all of his coronation arrangements to a friend. A bit like leaving your entire wedding to your best man's plan, really, and it went about as well as you could hope. His friend Piers Gaveston not only ended up looking much more splendid than the king, he forgot to include the Queen at all, which her relatives were not happy about, and merged his own coat of arms with the king's. He also failed spectacularly to arrange the coronation feast, so let that be a lesson to everyone. Don't leave all your planning to your best mate. He'll probably show you a good time, but not the rest of your friends. And don't leave out the misses, it can lead to wars. Richard II had a really bad day on his coronation. He lost his coronation shoe, lost the gold spur off the other shoe, and the wind blew his crown off, which people then sat there and went, ooh, this is a bad sign, he's not going to have a very good reign. Sure enough, he was deposed later on by Henry IV. So Henry IV himself didn't have a much better coronation. He managed to drop the gold coin that he was meant to offer to God. He dropped it, it rolled away, and despite much searching, it's still never been found. So somewhere in Westminster Abbey is a gold coin from the reign of Henry IV. If you find it, who knows? Maybe you can proclaim yourself king, but I think there may be complications there if you try it. One of my favourites is the coronation of Elizabeth I. She had several coronation issues. She was so extremely popular with the public that they fought to get close to her and were chopping holes out of the carpet as she stepped on it. She had this beautiful blue carpet arranged for herself, and as she walked down it, everything was fine. Members of the public scrambled to chop bits out of it, leaving her ladies-in-waiting constantly tripping up, falling over and tugging on the Queen's robes. With my notes out of the way. She also had an issue in that there was no Archbishop of Canterbury available to crown her, and because she changed the coronation ceremony to reflect her own Protestant beliefs, she met with a bit of conflict as her coronation still had to be carried out under the auspices of the Catholic Church. So a lot of her bishops just kind of went, sorry ma'am, no, not doing it. And she did get one bishop. Unfortunately for her, it was the Bishop of Carlisle, who had really annoyed her at Christmas and she didn't like. So it looked like it was going well right from the off. Despite being told, very strong instructions, that he wasn't to do so, the bishop carried out a rather Catholic sort of ceremony, elevating the host as part of it, invoking the Catholic beliefs, and the Queen Elizabeth I, in absolutely true Tudor fashion, imitating her father brilliantly, stormed out of her own coronation in a massive temper tantrum, which must have been amazing to see. It's not recorded whether she actually went back in and finished off the ceremony or not, but it's pretty cool to storm out of your own coronation as a queen. Again, in the Stuart period, you come to James II, the last Catholic monarch of Britain. He had a very wobbly crown, didn't fit. The wind ripped the royal standard right off its position, flying from the Tower of London. But it wasn't all bad. Everyone pointed to those being bad omens, and sure enough, James II was deposed later on. But the king himself had a right good time at his coronation. There was a chivalric tradition through royal coronations, which typically saw the king's champion ride into Westminster Hall, fling down his glove, and challenge anybody present to deny the sovereign's right to the throne. If nobody took the challenge, the champion would retire out of the hall. James II's champion was so enthusiastic, hurling his gauntlet to the ground, that he followed it, crashed to the ground in all of his armour, and lay there, scrambling like a beetle, much to the king's amusement, who could not stop laughing. So at least James had a good time at his coronation. On into the Georgian period, George IV had been trying desperately to divorce his wife prior to his coronation. In scenes rivaling anything in EastEnders, he was utterly unsuccessful to get the divorce and insisted that his estranged wife may not be allowed to attend his coronation. Gave instructions to all of his guards that she was not to be allowed in, and you guessed it, she ran around the abbey screaming, banging on all the doors, demanding that the Queen be allowed access. Guards stood firm, she wasn't allowed access, but the entire coronation was marred by her banging and screaming outside the entire time, as if it was the biggest catastrophe in the world, which for her I'm sure it was. George didn't care quite so much. Onwards to Victoria. Now, Victoria endured a 5-hour ceremony, mostly in pain, after the Archbishop forced her coronation ring onto the wrong finger. She'd had it measured for her little finger, he pushed it onto her middle finger, and it got stuck there. She had a hell of a time getting it off and spent hours with her hands soaking in water to try and get rid of it. And at 19 years old, 5 hours is a long time to sit in a ceremony. The bishop was also very confused about how to conduct the ceremony. They'd not practiced it, he didn't know what he was doing, Victoria had no idea what was going on, and eventually, even after she was allowed to leave, she got about as far as the abbey doors and was recalled immediately when they realised that the Bishop of Bath and Wells had completely forgotten to actually do the part of the service that made her queen. Bit embarrassing, really. Finally, when the Lords were presented to her, one of the more elderly members fell down the stairs, much to her horror, to land at her feet. He got up and tried again, good fellow, and became one of her trusted favourites. But it wasn't a pleasant experience for the young queen. So the final one that I have for you is the coronation of George VI, so that's the late Queen's father. The Archbishop almost dropped the crown. The King himself had suffered from difficulties with speech and was unable to read the oath as the Bishop had his thumb over the words, which wasn't great for the poor King. Lord Chamberlain then almost hit the King in the face with the sword of state, and when George stood up, he was almost pulled straight over as another bishop stood on the back of his robe. So there's plenty of interesting things that we can look out for at the coronation of King Charles III. But I'm using it as a bit of an excuse to sit down, put my flags up, have a good old-fashioned British drink, and as I have little King Chuck here, I need to declare myself Empress of the Bar, because I have to be the highest person in my own bar. Hope you enjoyed that very quick run through of coronations through time, and I hope we can all look forward to the coronation of King Charles III. Thank you. So, for more History Bites and more ducks, don't forget to like and subscribe.